Thanks.
Perfect. And thank you, District Governor-elect Sonia, for the opportunity to be here tonight. Some of you I've met, and some of you, I think you've been presidents I know before because you were in the same year I was. So congratulations on being elected, and congratulations on what will probably be a great year for you. So I do want to introduce, though, for those of you that have been here before, putting in district grants, we have a new district grant chair for your year when you come on, and that is Pat Cabinet. I'd like Pat to say a few words.
Hi, thanks, David. Welcome, everyone. Welcome to your role, although I see a number of faces that I too am familiar with, so welcome back if that's the case. And I will simply encourage you, if your club has not been involved in district grants, to consider being involved in district grants. Why would you not? You could get up to $2,000 US for a project that you are doing either locally or internationally. I'll be sending out an email in the next week or two with some more information for all of the current presidents and presidents-elects. So please stay tuned and feel free to ask me if you have any questions. That's what I'm here for. Thanks, David.
Thank you, Pat. So I'm going to go through a little bit of a PowerPoint presentation and talk to Sonia around what we're looking for. So let me just get a screen share here first. On hold, I found it. Who is that? So, just as I said, quick overview. And we're going to be about an hour and a half on this tonight. And as you can see from the diagram there, we're going to take you through everything you wanted to know and were afraid to ask about the foundation. And you'll be able to know all the things that are on there. But seriously, we're here to help, and we're here to, as Pat said, help you understand or help to get a little more familiar with the foundation. I don't know about you, but the first time that I knew anything about the foundation was when our club administrator, when she was collecting dues, asked me if I also wanted to make a contribution to the foundation. I said, I don't know. What's the foundation? And so Sandy went through and explained to me that, they help to get rid of polio. There's excellent mother and children's programs. We try to make sure that everybody has clean water. And as you know, from the 7 areas of focus we've got up there, recently we added supporting the environment. And when we look at all the projects that you do, they easily fit into one of those 7 areas. Talk a little bit about the foundation. So the foundation was created in 1917 by Rotary International's 6th president, Arch Klump, as an opportunity to have an endowment fund to do good in the world. The initial contribution came in from the Rotary Club of Kansas City of $26.50. And that donation has now grown to over 4.9 billion. That's with a B, $1 billion in total, creating hope in the world. And Arch, when he created this, he had a vision that he believed. Let me see, I got my people here in the wrong spot. He believed strongly that the foundation needed to emphasize that all contributions be voluntary. Nobody would be asked as part of an assessment to contribute. And he believed seriously in creating a living legacy of giving and a grant culture, and to inspire you to share the art of giving. So talk a little bit about how the process goes. So your contributions, when they come in, you can make a contribution directly to Polio Plus, which will go to polio eradication. You can make a contribution to the annual fund, which is where Pat wants you to make a contribution to, because after 3 years, half of the money that's contributed comes back to us in the form of what they call district designated funds, and where you can use that money for district grants. And the other opportunities you have when you want to make a contribution, you can make a contribution as an endowment, or you might know of a global grant that's out there and you want to put your money directly towards that. So many opportunities to get your funds out there the way you want it, and it's your call. The annual fund, as we mentioned, is really your gift at work. The foundation transforms that money into as I say, half of that money is coming back. Half it comes into district designated funds where we can split them between district and global grants, as well as the other half of that donation goes to the World Fund, where the trustees have the discretion on how to spend it. And I'll come back to that later. But if I had a chance, I would change our district grant name to community grants, because that's what it's really all about. It's about what you want to do in your community and how we can help you, how to support you. Last year, $181,000 in projects were completed in our district. $44,000 went to help support those from the district grant fund. So again, as Pat says, why would you not? There is a significant amount of money to help support all the good things you're doing in your club. So let me just walk you through some of the actual pictures. So we've got in Flushing, we have a little free library that they put the money towards. Shoreline restoration in St. Clair Beach, or St. Clair Rotary Park, I should say. All right, why are you not moving? Yeah, back here. Wells in Tanzania. You might notice that person on the left is very familiar to you because that is your district governor who is helping to build those wells. Outdoor water. When we talk about the water situation in Tanzania, we also have water issues that we want to do from the environment here. So here's an outdoor water ball station in Mitchell, helping to make sure that we make the environment a little better. A wandering patient alarm system in Port Elgin. The Prance Therapeutic Riding Program support from the Rotary Club of Southampton. And Ukraine refugee assistance with the Rotary Club of St. Mary's. And here's a family, a daughter, enjoying the opportunity to go shopping and get some winter boots and all the things that they needed. So, you know, that smile, I think, tells it all. And you could also put money towards projects outside of Mexico. We already talked about the one Sonia's involved with. Here's one with Rotary Clubs of London, Paul Harris School in Mexico. And they were doing desk and chair replacement. I think there's another grant they did the year before to help that school as well. And it's not just for Rotary clubs. Rotaract clubs have now, for the last couple of years, been able to submit for grants. And the Rotary Club of Western Ontario, or Western University, they now call themselves, they have a global health symposium that they put on, and the money goes to help support that, as well as they have a juvenile diabetes camp that they run, which is over a weekend, allowing parents to send their children who have juvenile diabetes to enjoy some time away, and they've got all of the things necessary to help make sure the kids are safe. And of course, we talk about the environment. Here's one where they're doing a memorial tree planting in St. Thomas. And outdoor basketball courts with shade trees with water project. So again, you don't need to just do one project. You can do multiple projects under a grant application. And here's a good example, doing some basketball courts in Stratford, as well as doing a water project around the world. And part of my reason I show you those pictures is to give you an idea of what other clubs are doing. Those pictures, the pictures I got, actually came back when the projects are completed. And Pat and I are going to encourage you to share those pictures with us so that we can share them with others. So most of those pictures, I say all the pictures I got right from when the grants were being completed. So thank you to those that do that. But remember, I talked about that half the money comes back into the district for us to use. But what about the other half? Well, the other half goes towards Polio Plus, Rotary Peace Centers, and of course the endowment funds. So when we think of the World Fund sourcing global grants, they include disaster relief. So we don't need to continue to talk about COVID-19. We all experienced it. For most of us, it wasn't fun. But what was really great is a number of clubs that started to help their communities right from the beginning, whether it was getting groceries for people that were shut in, whether it was doing whatever their community needed. And I do want to thank each and every one of you for what you did to help relieve some of the stress around COVID. There was a number of grants that were available for that. And when we think of disaster, we think of what's going on in Ukraine. And even though that one I showed you was a district or was a regular district grant that they applied for, there are 379 disaster response grants that have already been completed for $12.5 million in 30 countries. And we're in the process right now of looking at applying for one for the district. There's an opportunity for 25,000 US for Ukraine relief. And what it really will be used for is it'll be used for individuals who are coming here and again supporting them with whatever their needs are, just like we showed you in that one from St. Mary's. There's a hurricane, we had Hurricane Ian this past fall, and applications have been submitted to support those that are in need. So I want to show that as well, because a lot of times we think of the disasters that are going on in Turkey and Syria and Ukraine, but the reality is we're also supporting projects here at home when a disaster hits. And of course, you know that polio is eradication is our #1 global project, has been for a number of years. We have vaccinated 3 billion children. 19 million children are walking and not paralyzed because of our efforts. And of course, we've been fortunate to have the Gates contributing $2.5 billion with a 2-1 match from the foundation, from their own foundation, and they're going to continue to do that. And I know some of you are thinking this, and I know I've heard it many times. Are we not there yet? Let's say it, the wrong button. There we go. So we got some people who are saying, why is this not a done deal? Why are we still talking about polio? Most people don't have never experienced polio. They might not know anybody that had polio. There are so few cases. Let's just call it a day and move on. Polio eradication is no longer the bright and shiny new project that we had at one time. And we have got a lot of districts that want to use the Rotary dollars for local and global projects instead of fighting polio. So there's some pressure going on to say, when are we going to be done? Show you a little bit of the progress. I think most of you have know this. The eradication started in the US, and throughout the over the last since 1979, we have changed the picture to look like this. And through our, as I said, through our efforts, we've got a lot of people walking today that would not be walking. Here's a little summary of where we are currently. I was able to get this information as of March 15th, so it's hot off the press. So far, we've got no wild polio cases for this year. The total number of wild polio cases in 2022 was 30. And you can see that we're still in a couple of countries, and Afghanistan is going to be the toughest one because there's so much terrain and there's so difficult to get the vaccines into some of those communities, as well as we've got some political unrest in some of those countries too that does not make our life easy. The total number in 2021 was 6. And again, total number in 2020 was 140. So you can see there that it's heading in the right direction. And let's hope that we can keep that number of 0 pretty close for the rest of this year. But as we've said many times before, the virus is just a plane ride away. We've recently seen it happening in Malawi, Mozambique, and now New York City. It is easily transmitted, and we still need to be vigilant and try to make sure that we do not see this come back. So what we need over the next 5 years is we need $4.8 billion in funding in order for us to immunize over 400 children, fund the hundreds of thousands of polio workers, and intensify the disease surveillance activities. Where is Rotary's half 150 million spent? It's spent on raising awareness. We've got $36 million going out in polio grants. We've got $28 million going out into the cost of the vaccine. And we've got money that's needed to get the vaccines to the children. And you can see that modern day Afghanistan vehicle on the right is real. That's where a lot of times we've got to use to get up in that terrain. Everybody can't give a large amount. However, most can donate $100 and make it your legacy. Here's where your money's going to go for $100. You can see the breakdown there. And even though we talk about it being billions, if we break it down smaller and find out if we can handle it ourselves. Last year, Jennifer Jones has set a Polio Plus goal of $1,500 per club. She also encouraged clubs or districts to pledge $100 a year or $10 a month to become a part of the Polio Plus Society. And she also encouraged every club to consider being 100% Polio Plus Society club. We as a district, District Governor Mike has brought this in, and it is available. If you check out our website, the district's website, you'll see a place that can be donated. However, I've also given District Governor-elect Sonia a summary so that she can send it out after tonight's meeting, so you've got it fresh in your hand and you could look at whether or not that's a goal that you want to set for your club. The foundation trend is good news. We talk about member and club donations have been going up since the pandemic started. And I think a lot of that was because we were in more of a giving mood, because we knew that we had to support getting rid of COVID-19. But you can see there, we had some, like a lot of people were thinking there wasn't going to be much money available to go into our foundation, and yet it's grown. And in 21-22, we had $458,000, one of the highest amounts ever with club and individual. We also had, for our first time ever, a planned gift of over $1 million. And when you look at that number, you're going to go, why is it 1,227,245? The individual made a planned gift that was in Canadian dollars, and the currency had to be adjusted to reflect that. So that's where it came from. So that meant that in the year 21-22, we actually had a year of $1.69 million of donations going into the foundation, which is absolutely amazing, and so thankful for that planned gift. The number of donors has changed. It went down in 21. I don't really have a reason for that, but we did see it to get up over 53% of our members, which was, again, good news. Clubs with no donations, and I show this only because you can see that in 2020, 2021, we only had 2 clubs that no member made a donation. But in 21-22, the number rose, and part of that is because clubs were finding themselves being pinched between supporting the things that they needed to do in their communities, or needing the opportunity to make sure the money was going in the right spot. And so that's why you see a little bit of a downturn. But as I said, we didn't see a downturn in the number of the dollars that were coming in, which is really nice. Sonia asked me to share with you, how can you find some of your reports for the foundation? So I'm going to go through this tonight. I assume that with your AGs, they've already got you signed up, and everybody has a Rotary.org username and password. So I'm just going to make that assumption. You would go right to this screen after you've typed in myrotary.org, put your information in, move your mouse over to the foundation, a Rotary Foundation box, and then you go to wherever you want. So in my case, we're going to look at reports. And there's some very interesting reports here. So if you look at the first one, you can look at your own report. This is for you, the donor. You can also make a donation right there, or you can mail in your contribution, but all that information is there for you. There's also the status of your members in the club. And because I've got the role of the district district foundation chair, you'll see that I also have some district stuff, so I can, but you won't have that on your screen. And here's an example of the donor history report. It shows you how much you've donated. It shows what level of recognition you've received, and it also shows whether or not you've given any money or plan to give any money as a living legacy through the Bequest Society. The other one that we could click on is what the status is of your members. So if you wanted to know how many of your members were giving, you can click on this. You can also go on there to find out how many are doing it automatically. And I think that's the way to go. If we can get people doing it automatically every month, it's easy and it's not as painful. One of the things that I know the AGs are going to help you with, make sure this is ready, is make sure you've got all of the information in your club officer information for foundation. It makes it easy for us when we want to send stuff out to know who your foundation chairs are. And we also want to make sure that we've got the correct information updated. So this one here, you can see everybody is in the right spots, but they haven't got them ready for next year. So I'm just putting that out there. And my phone rings. Sorry about that. If you scroll more down on that report page, you'll see also that there's an opportunity to look at club givings. And under club givings, you can see there's a Paul Harris Fellow report, there's a Club Foundation banner, there's major donors. All the information you ever want to know is there and easy to find. You can see here, I've highlighted, there's what the reports are going to look like, or sorry, that page is going to panel is going to look like. And I'm just going here and we can show you the Club Foundation banner report. So under here, we can show you who the members are, when they achieved their every year or every Rotarian every year status. And it can also show you, are they giving automatically? How did through Rotary Direct? Are they a Paul Harris Society member? What is their status? So all that stuff is right there. You can look at it pretty quickly. Ways to give, as I said, if you can convince your members to do it through automatic giving, I think you'll find that it's going to climb, and the amount of donations we're going to get will benefit your clubs as well. So please consider making a gift, or for those there that say, you know what, I'm living pay to pay, or I'm living on retirement money, I don't have any money, might want to consider leaving a gift in their will, and then we know that continues on forever. Again, some people like to see paper. And if you do want that, there is a form right online that you can go and fill out and put her in an envelope and send it in. And either do it by check, you can do it by Visa, credit card, whatever works for you. They've got all the options for you. So what's interesting is when I was a district governor, a lot of people would tell me that when they got their Paul Harris, I would call and congratulate them on becoming a new Paul Harris. And they would say, you know what, I don't do it for the applause. And I said, I understand that, but we at Rotary have an opportunity to recognize people as they do hit certain levels. And so as a sustaining member, that's $100 a year into the annual fund. Paul Harris is $1,000 or more every year. Benefactor is again making a donation of 1,000 or less than 10 as far as what we consider a benefactor. The Quest Society is anything over $10,000, and when you come on to major donors and major contributions of up 10 to $249,000 is where we count, or where we track it for major donors. Arch Clump Society, I left this here because you remember that donation I talked about that was $1.2 million? That individual, when they passed, became a member of the Arch Clump Society because he was being recognized for over $250,000 contribution that was being made. And a matter of fact, as you can see, he's in the middle grouping there called the Foundation Circle. And the other nice thing about being a major donor, so once you get over $10,000, if you and your spouse are active Rotarians, you can combine your givings and under one, and that allows you then to get to be a major donor quicker because you're combining it. But the other thing that's important is that with all the dollars that are contributed, we also give you points that you can recognize somebody else in your community as a Paul Harris. If we go ahead and what the problem is we have is that we have a lot of clubs with a lot of points and they're sitting there not being used. When somebody passes away, those points are gone. And so with the only exception is a major donor. Once you have somebody who's a major donor, their points grow on for life. So I talked a little bit earlier about the ask, and I was fortunate enough to have the ask to me, and I said I would do it. And throughout the years, I have sponsored different things. We've done it through charity or through events where we're raising money for polio. And I am very proud of what the foundation can do. And again, I ask you to consider asking some of your members if they haven't contributed, if they would start. Pat and I are here to serve. We've got other people that are in our team that are available for discussion. So if you need any information on annual givings, district grant, global grants, Paul Harris, gift planning, Polio Plus, global scholarships, we're here to help, and we really want to make sure that we can help you be successful. So now the good part, Club Foundation goals. So as the club president, I'm going to ask you to think of these goals and ask you to consider either doing one or maybe two or maybe more. But the first thing is to make sure you do appoint a club foundation chair. As I say, it just allows us to get information into your club, and it also allows us to work closely to help with anything that we can do, whether it be education, whether it be where's the forms, any of that kind of stuff. We're here to help you with that. I'd like you to set an annual fund goal. You're going to go through and be looking at polio goals and annual fund. It really helps us to track what it is that we're trying to hit. And so I really encourage you to make sure that you've got those three things done in your Rotary.org. If, as Pat said, you haven't completed your grant MOU or your training, really encourage you to do that. If you've never used the foundation before, please consider doing it. We use up most of the money all year, but I would really like to support what you need to have done in your community. And it doesn't have to be $2,000. We've got clubs that are requesting like a $300 grant or a project, and we're giving them the money to support them. So it don't have to think big. It doesn't have to be big. It's just we're here to help you and to support you. Every Rotarian every year. So I'm going to ask that you consider being recognized as a club that is every Rotarian every year. So it's a $25 minimum donation needs to be made by a member. So if all your members have made at least $25 and others have made more, then your club will be recognized as an every Rotarian every year, as long as your club has donations on the average of $100. So it's a little tricky, but it's a minimum donation of $25, and then you have to average 100, which most clubs have no problem doing that. The other one I wanted to talk about was becoming a Rotary Promise Club. And what this is that every member provides a commitment to the endowment fund of $1,000 or more. Remember, that was one I said went from $1,000 to $10,000. This one here, you can, if your club decides to do that, and we've had a couple of clubs where that's their campaign right now. And again, one of the questions I get a lot is, well, what happens if I need the money and I can't continue with that commitment? That's fine. Like, it's all up to you. And what we're trying to do is if you have the opportunity and your will to provide $1,000 to the foundation, thank you. If it's not possible, that's okay too. Your service is appreciated. And the last one, but not least, is to become 100% Polio Plus Society Club. And that's the one where I said the District Governor Mike introduced this year. And we've had a number of people who've already signed up, which is great to see. But because it's new and fresh, I think DGE Sonia will be also promoting it going forward, and want to see if we can't get more people in. If we can get a 100% club, that would be marvelous. I think that'd be great. So again, I want to thank you for your contributions to the foundation. I know a number of you have already committed to keeping Rotary as one of your charitable opportunities, and I appreciate it, and we thank you for that. I also want to thank you for everything that you're doing, and especially stepping up to be a club president. I know that it can be a challenging but also it can be a very, very rewarding opportunity, as it was for me. And so I really appreciate everything you've done. And if there's any questions, we can stop the share and ask for questions.
Well, David, there was in the chat section a request as to whether or not you would mind sharing your slide deck so that the president to be can show that to their clubs.
You sure can. No problem at all. What I'll do, Sonia, is I'll send that to you and you can send it out to everybody.
Thank you. Looking for any hands up?
Perfect.
It looks like you were very clear in your content.
There you go.
Thank you very much for joining us. Was Pat wanting to say anything?
Just again, to encourage folks, the more we give within our district, the more we get back as well. As David said, many people believe that all the money sent to the annual fund goes internationally. It comes back to our district as well, allowing us to do local projects or international projects. So what we give, we get back.
Well, we look forward to working with your team.
Thank you. And all the best to everybody.
Good night.
Thank you. We're now going to have the opportunity to hear from Catherine Hahn. So Catherine is our district governor nominee, and she probably isn't aware of this, but she was 20 years a Rotarian last Monday. So congratulations on that milestone, Catherine.
Thank you.
Catherine is membership chair for the Rotary Club of Stratford. She was spotlighted by the Zone 28 as one of our shining stars in recruitment of members into Rotary. And she has also served the district as and is currently the district Polio Plus committee chair. And it's in this capacity that she's going to be talking to us this evening.
Okay, thank you, Sonia. I'm going to try and share my screen here. Let me see. And I also want to share sound. So hopefully I've got that right. I'm a little out of practice with Zoom technology, but can you see my screen, Sonia?
Yes, I can, Catherine.
Okay, perfect. Okay. So yeah, I'm going to talk to you a little bit about end polio now. David gave some great stats and talked about the state of polio in the world today, but I just wanted to go through a few other things that might be useful for you as club presidents, some ideas and some tools and resources that you can use to get some excitement within your club about end polio and why it is such an important project and why we need to get to zero in order to eradicate polio from the world once and for all. So I'll get started here. This is a photo of me in 2018. I went on an NID, which is a National Immunization Day, in a village. It was called Shamshabad, and it was in northern India. So I took my 20-year-old son, and we went into this little village, and we immunized children. It was a life-changing experience for both of us. And I would say it's probably a really big reason why I am the district polio chair. Having seen firsthand what polio looks like in those countries, it's devastating. It's not like what we see here in Canada, to see people who've been crippled and paralyzed by polio wandering the streets. It's really sad and such an unavoidable disease. As leaders of your clubs, though, here's an opportunity for you to encourage your members to understand and to convey the need for us to offer this education to our members and get them to buy into the End Polio initiative. So I'm going to share some education pieces with you, and as well as some reference materials that you can use with your club. Most of what I'm going to show you today is material that I have pulled from the End Polio website, and there's the address there. endpolionow.org, or endpolio.org will get you to the same place. I'll do it really quick. I'm sure most of you know what polio is, but if there's some younger people in the group, they might not. I mean, I like I say, I didn't know what polio was for a long time. So it's a paralyzing and potentially fatal disease that threatens children in parts of the world, 2 countries now to be exact. It invades the nervous system and can cause total paralysis within hours. Strikes anybody, but mostly it's children under the age of 5. Polio can be prevented by vaccines, but it is not curable. And so like most diseases, it can be eradicated. And here in Canada, we have been considered polio-free since 1994. So maybe not as long as you think that we've been an eradicated country. So polio crippled tens of thousands of Canadians until the Salk vaccine was introduced in 1955. It used to be called infantile paralysis, or the crippler, because of the permanent damage that it caused to nerve cells in your muscles. First polio outbreaks appeared in Europe in the early 1800s. And the first outbreak in Canada didn't happen until 1910. And it was a little girl who was taken to a hospital in Hamilton. They thought she had rabies, which surprised me to hear that that's how it would present, and later discovered to be polio. So this is one of the few pictures that I took of a polio survivor in India. It just felt a little, I didn't feel comfortable. It felt a little exploitive taking pictures of these survivors. But this was actually, I think I had taken a picture of something bigger and I cropped in so that you could see what this looks like in India. And, you know, the polio survivors were walking all over the streets of India, begging. And you know, in countries like this, they're just treated like dogs. They're physically and mentally abused and forced to beg, or sometimes they're even locked away. Really sad. So as David said, Rotary members have contributed $2 billion and countless volunteer hours to protect more than 3 billion children worldwide. Our efforts have played a role in the decisions made by governments to contribute more than $8 billion to that effort. So I'm going to play just a short little video for you. Oops, pause that for a second to give you a little lead in. This is one of those videos that you can find on the endpolionow.org website. There's tons of them out there. This one's a little bit on the lighter side. As you can see, it's a cartoon, and it talks about the ways that Rotary works towards eradicating polio. So it speaks of these 4 agents of eradication: hunting the virus, creating strategies or campaigns against polio, advocating, and of course, immunizing. And so our clubs can all find ways to be one or more of these agents of eradication. So I'm going to let you have a look at this. Can you hear it, Sonia? very dramatic music to go along with that. But anyway, it gives you an idea of some of the areas where your clubs can step in here to try and find a way to support the End Polio campaign. I don't know if you've heard of this movie. I watched, it's fairly new to Netflix, maybe a year or so. It's been out there. It's a real eye-opener. It's based on a true story of a young boy who's the victim of polio in Pakistan. So you might need to watch it more than once to peel back all of the layers of issues that are unearthed, trying to eradicate polio in a country like Pakistan. For sure, it'll help you to gain some perspective about how difficult that is for immunizers to get into those countries. Here's my son, Evan. He was pretty emotional at this point as he's giving these life-saving drops of vaccine into the mouth of an unwilling little patient there. India has been declared polio-free since 2014. But again, until it's eradicated worldwide, these immunizations need to continue to happen everywhere. And so David showed you those stats. So far this year, we've had 0 cases reported in the last 2 endemic countries, which are Afghanistan and Pakistan. But you know, it needs to be eliminated and eradicated everywhere. Once that final case of polio is recorded, it will take at least 3 years to ensure that that is in fact the last case. And all of the eradication activities are going to need to continue to be funding and volunteers supplied throughout all of that. So we're really close. We're 99.9% reduction in polio. We're not there yet. And Rotarians and other people have to keep on working. And like David said, it's natural for us to say, you know, it's basically gone. So let's move on to other things. But the fact is, it isn't gone. And if we move on and don't complete the job, we're going to set ourselves up for some disease to come back. And so David alluded to this a little bit, the issue that happened last year in New York. So it was the first case of polio in the US since 2013, but it was particularly unnerving because it happened where people are not vaccinated against the disease. So in New York County last fall, there was a young adult living in the area who had been partially paralyzed by polio. So he had been, they believe that the infected person had come in contact with the virus from an international traveler. And 3 weeks after that case was announced, the New York State Department of Health said the virus had been found in samples of water in New York City and also in the neighboring counties. So less than 60% of the people in those counties had been vaccinated against polio. So here was this opportunity for polio to really resurge in an area like that where people hadn't been vaccinated. I'm going to skip the video, I think. Ann-Lee Hussey spoke at one of our noon Zooms in October, and if you would like to watch her presentation, it's an excellent presentation. She is a very devoted Rotarian towards ending polio. She's a polio survivor herself. So worth a look, and that's on our YouTube channel as well here, so that you can have a look at that. Anyway, what I want to say about this is that people who are vaccinated against polio should not be concerned. But for those who are unvaccinated, there's a real red flag here. The fact that we're seeing not only a case of paralytic disease, but polio in the wastewater is really concerning for ongoing community transmission. People who are unvaccinated are at a risk for developing paralysis. And so in general, in North America, since the COVID pandemic, we've seen some pockets of under-vaccinated people around the country. Not clear why that is. Maybe it's just that people weren't able to get out to their service provider or their healthcare providers to get vaccines during the shutdowns. But it's certainly time to think about getting children and young adults vaccinations up to date. Real lesson for us to remember to check on our immunizations and of our children and our grandchildren, and actually for adults as well, because this vaccine is available for all ages. These vaccines do work presumably for life, so we don't generally need boosters. But having said that, I was boosted with the polio vaccine before I went to India. That was recommended to me. So we all have a vested interest in helping to eradicate polio. Okay, so here we are. How can we get your club involved in the End Polio Eradication program? Let's start by, there's a few things that we can do. We need to raise awareness. We need to start a conversation about End Polio. We need to advocate and we need to donate. So here's a list of some suggested things that you can do within your club to promote End Polio. I can go through all of this list, but I wonder, is there anybody on the call that would like to unmute and just talk about some End Polio projects that you do within your own club to help fundraise or create awareness? Just go ahead and unmute yourself if anyone would like to chime in here. So there's some
it's Susan, and we've had all 3 clubs in Sarnia do a walkathon. We've also had a local donut shop do purple donuts for polio.
Oh, cool.
We've stood outside the bank and done Purple Pinky program, different things like that.
That's great. Yeah, and Purple Pinky, I don't know if you're all familiar with that, but that's when they do immunizations, they actually paint the children's pinky fingers purple so that they know that they've given them an immunization. So it's a real thing that happens. Anyone else have anything they'd like to share in terms of what you do for End Polio?
Hey, Catherine, I'll give an example of what our club did a couple of years ago. So we discovered that the cribbage board that's in the shape of a 29 was designed by a young Canadian gentleman who was a carpenter, and he had polio and he was recovering from polio. And he wasn't able to continue his trade on large projects, but he started making these 29 cribbage boards and ended up having a fairly good career with it. So we had a cribbage tournament, and there was an entry fee, and all of the proceeds went to the Polio Plus program, and we raised just shy of $3,000.
Nice. That's fun, right? There's lots of fun things that you can think of doing. You know, we were doing a little bit of brainstorming about the things that you can do, like things that start with a P, pizza for polio, pints for polio. I did some yoga classes. We called it poses for polio. So, you know, just think of fun and creative ways that you can involve your club and also members of your community to get involved in fundraising for End Polio. You can see that there's like tulip bulbs there. Our district was heavily involved in the tulip bulb a few years ago. Actually, last year, I think we did a second year. So lots of great ideas there. World's Greatest Meal is a big thing that that happens across the world for End Polio. Oh, I see Pilsner for polio. That's a great one. Yeah, so there's lots of great ideas there. And if you're looking for more ideas, I'm happy to share some more with you. Yeah, there's some, the options are endless, really. So this raise.rotary.org is our District 6330 place where you can make donations. So you can check that out as well. What else? And of course, David talked about District Governor Mike's initiative this year to create a Polio Plus Society. So $100 US contribution every year. So you're going to make that commitment to make that donation. We just started this beginning of the year, and so we're getting all of those certificates lined up and sent out. If you would like to become a Polio Plus Society member yourself, you can email me. And of course, I'd be happy to make a presentation to any of your clubs that would like to know more about the Polio Plus program. And then finally, I guess the last thing, and again, David has talked about this, tripling your impact. This is, you know, talk about getting bang for your buck. For every dollar that you donate, Bill and Melinda Gates Foundation is going to match that 2 to 1. So every $1 becomes 3. So that's a great incentive to give to your members as well for making donations to End Polio. Anybody have any questions for me? Stop sharing.
I'm not seeing any hands, Catherine.
Awesome. Well, if anybody needs any help with your end polio, World Polio Day is the end of October, but Immunization Day week is April 24th, I believe. So there's another opportunity for you to promote end polio in your club. So thanks, Sonia.
Thank you, Catherine. So earlier this year, our district governor, Mike Chafee, brought the district leadership team together to do some planning for our future efforts. But we started off the event by sharing with each other our most memorable moment in our Rotary journey. And for many of the people who spoke, the memory involved our experiences with the Rotary Exchange program and the students who we have had the joy of meeting with, living with, and spending time with. Over the years, many of our clubs, mine included, have moved away from this program. And I'm hoping that tonight, you'll take some time to reconsider re-engaging in this international program. So to this end, we are joined by Ross Barnett, who is a member of the Goderich Rotary Club since 2011. And Ross is currently our district chair of the Rotary Exchange program. So over to you, Ross.
Hi. Well, okay. Wow, hard act to follow. Thanks, Catherine. Can we do the poll? Is that sort of something active to do? We've been sitting listening for almost an hour now. Oh, here we go. So the question is, have you been a Rotary Exchange student? You just click yes or no and submit. It's real easy. Oh, that looks good. That's a red wine.
I have what Dagmar's having.
Yeah. No, just starting mine.
Oh, I heard you talking, so I thought it was.
Just starting. Okay, so it's just waiting for this is waiting for me. I'm sitting here going, geez, what's this doing? Okay, there we go. Oh, 7%. Is there any way of knowing the number on that, or?
It's 3 out of 44 participants.
Okay, woohoo. I think I'm probably going to introduce at least 2 of them to you later. Okay, can we do the next one? It's I think we're asking if you were ever a host parent.
Yeah.
That's the results again. I don't want to share my screen yet. So is the next question coming, or?
I'm trying.
You're trying, okay. I can't tell from here.
It won't let me launch for some reason.
Well, that's unfortunate. Okay, well, let's do it slightly differently then. Raise your hand, use the, oh, wait, there we go. We got it. Have you ever hosted an exchange student? Okay.
So I actually have a quick question on that. Is that by a club or just by your actual household?
Your actual household. So
Okay.
you've been a host parent.
Thank you.
Okay, no problem. Yay. Oh, yeah. Lots more host parents. Good stuff. All right. So how many, do we know what the number on that one is?
14 said yes, 30 said
14.
no.
Okay, that's a good number of host parents. That's where my Rotary Youth Exchange experience started with as a host parent. My wife, Roseanne, who's hiding in the corner over here, she'll talk to you later about New Generations Exchange. Came home from a Rotary meeting one day and said, I volunteered to host the exchange student. And my thought was, well, I better finish renovating the bedroom because otherwise they've got no place to stay.
That was
And
the first of how
That was the first of about 30.
No.
I lost track at 30. So anyway, I'm going to try sharing my screen now. And I promise you I have fewer slides than than David had. That's of any consolation. And I'm sharing half of those with Roseanne. So that is not what I was trying to do. That was my come on. There we go. So Sonia, are you seeing my screen now that the Rotary Youth Exchange, why your club should be involved?
Yes, we can see that.
Awesome. Fantastic. So these are some pictures of our exchange kids. That was a gathering in Kincardine a number of years ago. As you probably know, we had to take a couple of years off because of COVID. And we're getting back in the program now and eager to keep going here. Now, I'm trying to remember what I do here to make, there we go. So, oh shoot, I'm missing part of my screen. Okay, so Rotary Youth Exchange is 3 projects in one. It's a youth service project, it's a peace and conflict resolution project, and a membership building project all at once. So this is partly why you want to do this, because it's one thing and it's hits 3 things. You can check 3 boxes off. It makes your district governors happy. See, I even saw Catherine smile on that one. So, oh boy, when I'm sharing my screen like this, I lose my header. So I'm struggling to read that. Why should you send a student abroad? Well, it's a great opportunity for them to study abroad for a year. They learn a language, they learn a culture. It's a once in a lifetime opportunity. You do not get to do this again as a grown-up or as a university student. It costs way more, and there isn't a Rotarian family looking after you. So trust me, this is a once in a lifetime thing for these high school students to do. I probably should have prefaced this. I assume everybody knows that Rotary Youth Exchange is a high school exchange program. Kids go to another country for a school year, or they come and vice versa, they come to our district for a school year. I've been doing this so long, I assume everybody knows that part. I keep forgetting that I make these assumptions. It's also an opportunity to show these kids what we are as Rotarians and what Rotary is about and how we go about making the world a better place and instilling the concept of service in young people. Okay. And just sort of our youth exchange district committee, at the moment we have 10 of us and 5 of them have been on exchange, and 8 of them have been host parents. So it's quite addictive. The students are really amazing. So anybody recognize this Rotarian? Not the 2 short ones, the one with the glasses. So what I'm gonna do is I'm gonna share a few stories. This is Aiden Hogevorst. She's my daughter, yeah. She was in Brazil in 2005, 2006. She's now a member of the Goderich Rotary Club. When she was with the Mitchell Rotary Club, she was her YO. She was the president before she was 30 years old. And she was part of their fundraising team that put together the Hearts for Hospice event and raised about $20,000 each year. They ran that event. She's on our district exchange committee because I made her. No, because she wants to be. And this all began when she was a host sister back in 1999. So you can see that, you know, Rotary invested in Aiden and they've gotten over $40,000 back. So how's that for a good investment? How about this Rotarian? Anybody recognize this guy? You might. You've probably seen him. Maybe if you actually, you're going to see him at the next your next PILA thing. So this is Kirk Langford. He went to Brazil the same year as Aiden. He was one of the founders of the London Satellite Club. Again, a president of Rotary before he was 30. He's stepping down as the district public relations chair. He's the outbound coordinator on our District Youth Exchange Committee. He's now with the Strathroy Rotary Club and he's Youth Exchange officer. Now, for sure you don't recognize this picture. Oh, you do? Catherine, anyway, that's Don Borg. He went to Finland back in 1885. No, 1985, 86. He's been on the District Youth Exchange Committee forever. Just a couple of years or so ago, he was the president of the Rotary Club of London. He was actually Aidan Kirk's outbound coordinator. And when he was living in Mexico, he was the president of the Lamos de, I can't say that club in Mexico. There, what she said. So, you know, Youth Exchange is an amazing way of getting people interested in Rotary. You might recognize this guy in the middle. He now looks a little more like the guy on to the right of the screen. Anyway, this is Dave Bertrand. He went to Australia in 1980-81. He is the president-elect for Southampton Rotary. He's the Youth Exchange officer. And I hate him because he can still wear his Youth Exchange blazer. So, but he gets to tell you a little bit about his Youth Exchange story now. So I'm going to stop sharing my screen so we can see him better. And Dave is going to unmute himself and talk to us for a couple of minutes. I hope.
Yeah, I can.
There he is.
I can still barely fit into that blazer. It's behind me here somewhere, or hanging on my mic stand. Anyways, I just got a few slides to show. I'll just be a couple minutes. The problem is 1980-81, there was no digital photography yet. So I just found out before this meeting how to convert slides to digital. Okay, well, there's my jacket. Everybody can see it? Yes? Okay, good. And that there, I went over in August of 1980. I was from District 701, Timmins. I chose Australia just because I thought it was far away and kind of cool. Didn't technically have to learn a different language, though in some parts of Australia that's arguable in the outback, but I didn't have to learn a language. There were two conferences, one in Gravenhurst, one in Ottawa, that prepared us well. That's where I got my jacket. The flight across the Pacific was great. The plane was half full of exchange students going to Australia. So how fun is that? My first host family, I didn't get all my slides converted because this was a bit of a rush job, sorry. But my first host family was on a farm, and I had a pet kangaroo there. They taught me a little bit about shearing and work with sheep. We had a little carousel thing where we all had to do a job on each sheep as we turned it around. And I remember that well. The high school I went to was grades 7 to 12. That's the Australian system even today. And of course, the school year in Australia is a little different in the sense that it ends in December and the new school year starts in February. So I finished the end of grade 12, tried some of their exams, and then started a new school year with another class. Anyways, yeah, the family you see is my second host family, and I got very close to them. And the gentleman on the right, well, we kept in touch till he passed away. And I still keep in touch with the young fellow there, his son, my host brother. We still exchange Christmas gifts, actually. And they actually came over to my wedding in 1984. So, yeah, I'm gonna go on with okay, this was a trip to Canberra, and I had a quick little story about that. Rotarians often take you on trips with them to show them their part of the country, which is great. And I hope that our Rotarians do the same for our inbound. And I had one guy who took me to Canberra, that last photo there, and he was an undertaker. And I thought to myself, well, he's going on business. That's great. I'm going to get to see the capital city. Well, he was an undertaker and he was on business. So we went to the morgue, and and he pulled out this elderly lady on the slab and asked me if I'd pick her up by the ankles, which I did, and put her on the gurney, and we put her in the hearse, and that was my trip to Canberra. And I did get to see that little picture, and he did show me a few things, but basically it was business. And the Rotarians, of course, had a lot of fun with that when at the next meeting. This guy here was my second host family, and third host family. They were on a farm as well. And he taught me how to milk a little bit. Let's see if I think I had a picture of that. That's me trying to milk. I didn't actually do a very good job. This is my host mom. Now I saw them about 7 or 8 years ago. They were touring Canada, and we had dinner with them in Toronto. So I still kept in touch with them, and she's still doing very well. He's since passed away. They took me fishing in Narooma in January on the South Coast. That was our catch. So I got to go out on what I considered a very small boat on the massive Pacific Ocean. And that's what I caught before I became deathly sick and laid on the bottom of the boat for the rest of the tour. We had our, just like we do in our district, we had a lot of things for the exchange students in the district in Australia, and they were a blast. And I did keep in touch with a number of people for a few years. I've since lost touch with them, but it has been 42, 43 years. So, but these are some of we went on a tour. This is a fellow from the States that were both musicians. These are our Canadian contingent doing some entertainment at one of the conferences. This is up on a safari up in Queensland. More stuff on, that might've been Coober Pedy. We camped out because it was a safari. So every night we pitched the tents. This is our group from all over the world touring. And yeah, some koalas. Just sort of random photos. As I said, I kind of rushed this, but anyways, while the slides go, I had actually 5 host families, which is a bit unusual. But I ended up in the school musical at the end of the year. I learned to body serve. In general, the experience helped to definitely broaden my worldview and develop some leadership skills, friendships that lasted a lifetime. And I'm gonna stop this. I didn't even realize before I went down to Australia that there is a ski season in Australia. So I did manage to go skiing in June. And because we weren't all that far from Kosciuszko, the highest mountain in Australia. I was in Cootamundra in New South Wales. And it was only about an hour from Canberra. And that's my second host family, and they came over, as I said, for my wedding, and Jim came over in 2009, and Jenny had since passed away, his wife, but we went on a tour of Ontario together, took him up to Moosonee, and we had a great time, took him to a Blue Jays game, and he indeed was like a second dad to me. And that's my talk.
Well, thanks very much. So we have another Rotarian on the call who is a president-elect, Suzanne Brown. Blank for a second. I was going to go back to my slides, but then just in case Suzanne starts sharing, we're not going to bounce back and forth. So Suzanne went to Mexico. Actually, looking at my slides, I can't remember when she was there. Suzanne, say hi. Start talking.
Hi.
There she is. Okay.
I'm
We'll
here.
always let Suzanne introduce herself, because that will be slightly easier than bouncing back and forth between slides and not. So take it away, Suzanne.
So I went to Mexico in 1999, 2000. I lived in Irapuato, Guanajuato, Mexico. I was 16 when I went. And then I also sent my 16-year-olds during COVID. He went in 2019, 2020 to Finland as well. So I kind of have the both sides of being the inbound, outbound, rebound, as well as the mom who sent their baby away. I can say that my son is probably more Finnish now than he is Canadian. I have a Finn Canadian son that he would probably move back to Finland in a heartbeat if he had the opportunity to. So a couple of things that were huge for me of why I chose Rotary as the company to go with. That Rotary has the advantage that it's a year-long exchange versus a lot of the other exchange companies only offer a 3-month exchange, and I didn't want to go on a 3-month vacation. Being there for a year, it gives the students the opportunity to really immerse themselves in a culture, learn the language, meet new people and friends, and really become a part of the community. Versus 3-month exchanges, I feel like are literally just a vacation and then you're going home. They also offer the best training, and that's for when you're going out. You have lots of training that I'm part of the district committee as well with Ross, and we work with the kids before they leave, so they know what to expect, as well as when they're gone. They have a huge resource here, but as well as the country that they're in, but as well as when they return, and they have the resources as well, that because returning home is probably just as difficult as actually going and being there. And as a parent, it's really great actually hearing it from other parents and learning about the experiences and what to expect when your child is coming home, because there is having your 16-year-old leave, they come home a 25-year-old, or at least they think they are, and they are a lot more mature. So it's having that experience and having that advice from the Rotarians as well as like the Rotex from everyone else is huge. But also having like the huge amount of experience and availability for everyone while your child is away is huge too. That probably the scariest moment I've ever gotten is my son calling me to tell me he has COVID. And it was the beginning of March, right before Canada went into full shutdown. So it was terrifying. But at the same point, I had faith in the system and I had faith in my son's host family. And I knew he was safer in Finland than he was in Canada. They took care of him and he was part of their family. So he was safe there. He got over it and was good. And in the end, he refused to actually come home, even though the Canadian government was sending us almost daily emails, literally saying, bring him home. And my 16-year-old absolutely refused to come home. And he was, I think, the last exchange student to actually leave Finland and the last exchange student to come back into our district, that he stayed the entire year. And the only reason why he came home is because the Finnish government was telling him he had to come home because his visa was running out. So I get asked all the time though, of how can you send your 16-year-old away to a place that you don't know, they don't speak the language, you don't know anybody over there? And my answer is always, how could I not? That I know he was more than capable. I knew the system. I knew that Rotary was more than capable of giving him the home that he needed and the advice that he needed and being there for him. So I couldn't hold him back from that. And being an exchange student as well, I knew that this was the best thing for him and he was going to have the most amazing year of his life, and he definitely did. So a couple of advantages to your club as well, that it's not just all about the kid that's going abroad or coming in, that it's a huge advantage for your club for hosting. So you're welcoming youth and you're showing them what Rotary is all about. You're showing the world the projects that you work on, the different things that you do within your club, your culture. Membership is also huge. I'd like talk to their parents because those are future members to your club, and welcome them to come to a meeting to learn about Rotary. These are the people that already understand how important your club is, and they value the work that you do. So they're a no-brainer kind of member to join in. You encourage the connection in your home community and in the wider world. You're investing in the student's life. You're showing the world how great your club is, how great your community is, your province and your country really is. You're teaching them about our culture and showing them how great we are. Have you ever wanted to travel to a faraway place, or speak with people there, hear their language, learn their culture? By hosting an exchange student, you're more able to experience that travel experience without the expense of it. So you can bring the world to your club and your community and experience all the excitement that comes along with it. You get to try new foods, learn new words. Like right now, my club is trying to learn how to pronounce the King of Thailand's name. Our president is not doing a very good job of it, but it is entertaining every meeting to try to get him to pronounce it, because our exchange student that we're hosting is from Thailand. So we're working on some different words with her. She's trying to teach us some words. It's not easy. But we're also seeing new places and creating lifelong relationships with people who otherwise we probably wouldn't have crossed paths with. So we're learning about their culture without even leaving our community. And the students want to teach you about their country. They are so excited to show you where they come from, about their family, about everything. And it really opens up your mind and your club and all its members to actually what's out there, what's happening in the world, and places that we might even need to assist, or projects that we could actually work on as well. So it's also about developing understanding. One of the most valuable lessons learned when you're hosting exchange students is you have far more in common than you actually realize. So by allowing the students into another culture, into your life, you cultivate a deep appreciation for the fact that despite having thousands of kilometers apart from each other, speaking different languages, following different sports, yes, they don't usually know about hockey or lacrosse in our world. We're teaching our exchange student this weekend about going to a lacrosse game. You're entertaining yourselves in different ways, but we're also very much alike and capable of building genuine and meaningful relationships with one another. But you're also cultivating lifelong friendships that I can honestly say I'm still friends with all my host families, as well as my friends from Mexico and around the world from all the other exchange students that I met there. My last host mom and I speak actually a fair bit. She's mi mama mexicana. And I still go to her for advice. The good, the bad, and the ugly, we still speak about all the time. My host sisters, I still speak with all the time. And it's great because social media now that we can communicate so much better than through snail mail. So it's nice having those experiences and being able to. And I can say my son still speaks with his host families all the time. He calls them his host mom and dad, and he had 3 host families while he was abroad as well. And he's still extremely close with them as well. So you're really showing the world how great Canada really is, because each year Rotary unites all of us with the world, and it gives us the opportunity to really show how great Canada is and what we have to offer, and give these students a broad spectrum of activities and different knowledge that they can take back to their countries to say, hey, this is the most amazing country. Yes, our country that we live in is great, but it really is, Canada is an actually amazing country as well. And a lot of the time they'll come back and visit you. We still communicate with a lot of our students from our club as well. We have one student that sends us Christmas ornaments actually every Christmas to our club. So we look forward to getting those from Thomas. So it's great, those connections that we have. But there's also your language that I know we all speak English for the most part, but it's really great getting your English to actually be that much better, that I can actually say our English isn't great in Canada. We don't speak proper English. And funny story, my son actually failed English while he was in Finland because they speak proper English. So he did come back and pass afterwards. But it's also helping those kids learn the English language, and helping us actually get better English sometimes as well in the process of it. So I end in saying that, can you imagine if all the youth in the world were actually given the opportunity to travel in and experience the different cultures in the world? There would be more understanding, more forgiving, and more open-mindedness. That I can honestly say I'm a proud Canadian, but I'm also a world citizen. And I have 3 boys, and I encourage all of them to live that world, that we are a world citizen, and to go out into the world and experience. And by opening our clubs to these youth, it is giving them an experience that will change their lives, and it also changes you as Rotarians as well.
Great.
That's all I got.
Thanks, Suzanne. Okay. Awesome. Well, I'm going to turn back to sharing my screen again. Robert, you have a question. You're waving your hand. You're muted though, Robert. Robert, you're still muted. Sorry, can't hear you.
Muted myself.
There you go, Robert. Okay, there you go. Ask your question.
What is the cost to a Rotary Club in American dollars for a youth exchange year?
At this point in time, I believe it's $1,000 US is the fee paid to the district. Plus there is the allowance monthly paid to the inbound student, which is between $75 and $100, depending on, that's sort of club dependent.
That's less than it was 25 years ago.
Well, we've been able to reduce the cost, actually. Just trying to get, there we go. That was 16. All right. Yeah, it's a good deal. Honestly, I mean, there's some I'm not going to call it candy coated. There's some hard work for the youth exchange officer and the committee. It can be shared around, but you know, somebody's got to do some paperwork, and it's not always easy. Finding host families is our biggest challenge. Quite often we hear that that's why clubs don't feel that they can host anymore. I mean, honestly, the days of standing up in front of your Rotary Club and saying, we need 3 host families for our exchange student, and they get 3 volunteers and they go home and tell their wives that they volunteered to host. That's not going to happen anymore. Our clubs are smaller, our clubs are older. I mean, once your kids are out of the house, you got to think twice about bringing an exchange student in. So we look for non-Rotarian host families. But you know, the kids that want to go out are willing to help with that and can help with that, and should be encouraged strongly to help you find somebody who will host. And if you get those host families involved, that's 2 potential new members right there. The host family. So I'm just gonna keep going on that membership idea. We've talked to a number of people already tonight on this about, and I've shown you stories of people. The outbound students themselves, they're not going to be your member next year. It's going to be a few years, but there's a really good chance they're coming back. The outbound student parents, they could be your member next year, because you're going to show them what Rotary is all about. And they're having that encounter also through their children. They're definitely see what happens at the district level. So if you involve those outbound parents in your club, even better. You know, they could be club members next year. Then you've got your 3 families that are hosting your inbound student. Well, that's 6 potential people, right? So in a total for 1 kid, you've got a potential of 9 potential new members. Like, tell me, what poster can you put up anywhere that's going to have that kind of result for you? And by the way, how many of you guys people joined Rotary because somebody handed you a card or you saw a poster? You were asked, I promise. I might be lying, I doubt it. Anyway, I just want to say I'm almost done. Then I'm going to hand it over to Roseanne. She's going to talk to you about New Generations Exchange. I would like you to support Youth Exchange in your club some way, somehow. Number one thing I'd like, if you'd love you to consider being a part of Exchange, send a student out, give them that life-changing opportunity, bring a student in, have them enrich your club. Or if that's not something you're up for, you could sponsor one of our conferences. That would be fun. Thornbury Clarksburg sponsors a ski conference every year. It's one of the highlights of our inbound students. We got a student from the Philippines to ski this year. She was absolutely terrified the first day, but we actually got her skiing the second day, and she is so proud of herself. It's amazing. So we'd love to have somebody sponsor our conferences to help share our costs. If that's not something you guys are up for, donate to our 50th anniversary scholarship fund. That's through the foundation at the London Rotary Club. So that's my pitch.
And I can just say something about the 50th anniversary scholarship. exchange shouldn't be out of reach just because you're the child of a single parent. It shouldn't be out of reach just because your parents aren't well off. So that scholarship makes sure that we are opening this program up to anybody. And I think that's really important that Rotary is opening up opportunities for education to everyone.
So
Sorry.
like the Rotary Foundation, Rotary Youth Exchange isn't just a club level project. It's district and Rotary International worldwide. And I'd be happy to talk to you, to your club service committee, youth service committee. There's my contact information. It's not going to be there long enough, but I think you're going to get these slides and it's been recorded. But I'm also in the district directory because that's how we do things in Rotary. So now I'm going to sneak out of the way. We're going to do a little sort of chair swapping here. So Roseanne's front and center because we're now on to New Generations Exchange. Oh, unless Sonia was going to do an introduction. Sonia, need to get in there and say something.
I was just going to do a little introduction for Suzanne, but you have done that. Suzanne is also a member of the Goderich Rotary Club, and you've been a member, I believe, Roseanne, since 1991.
Yeah, I guess.
Yeah. So welcome.
No, not that long.
96.
96.
96.
Yeah.
Well, I'm looking forward to your talk. Thank you.
Okay, so I'm going to talk about New Generation Service Exchange. And I hope that not only will this get you excited to send people out, it will get you excited to go, wow, it'd be fun to be on that committee.
Page now.
Okay, so I was lucky enough to be at the 2006-2007 Rotary International president speaking at the Youth Exchange Conference that we have in Grand Rapids. And his comment was, if every 17-year-old student went on a Rotary Youth Exchange,
Yes.
there would be no more war in the world. So my question was, though, what do you do if you don't have it together as a teenager? I was living on my own and trying to finish my last year of high school when I was 17. There's no way I was going on an exchange when I was still trying to figure out how I paid my rent. Well, that's what New Generation Service Exchange is so nice about. It's for the 18 to 30-year-olds. I'll be honest, most of the students who come are older than that. They're usually 21 and up because they've had enough university that they have an idea of what they want to do vocationally. But we have been taking 18-year-olds for the last, like the 19-year-olds, because they're what we're calling our lost years. The students who were supposed to go out September 2020, and we all know what happened there. So we're trying to make sure those students get an opportunity. It is a vocational exchange. It's an unpaid internship or job shadow. It's really exciting. I have 3 people coming in. I have Arn, who is going to be doing some engineering things in Stratford. We have Isadora from Brazil, who will be working at Blythe doing costumes. We have Lucas from Brazil, who will be working at a camp near Sarnia. So it's starting up again. But for them, it's about learning about what they want to do for their vocation. You'll notice I talked about it as mentoring. They're placed in job settings, but they're not paid. It's not a school-based internship. They participate in Rotary projects. It can be up to 6 months long, and they're hosted by Rotarians or by the families of individuals who've already done an NGSE. So if you've done an NGSE, you are expected to give back by potentially hosting in the future. You'll notice I talk about it as mentoring and as placement because we avoid the word work or job or volunteer, because that really changes your visa. And the candidates can be college or university students, Rotaractors, Rotex, or early stage career. What's really nice about it is it means they're grown-ups. They know what they want to do. They're mature. They're past that stage of, oh my gosh, I'm allowed to drink now. So they're students who are really here, motivated to learn, motivated to get the best out of this experience. They usually have a much better understanding of the service above self motto, and they really do engage. And they're people that, as host parents, you feel very responsible for Youth Exchange. But these NGSE candidates, they're like friends, young friends, but friends. There is a website, www.youngadultexchanges.org. Do not make a mistake and type in Young Adults Exchanges, because Young Adult Exchanges, that's not what you'll get. It is Young Adult Exchanges. The S changes it to Sex Changes, and it's not a site you want to end up on by accident, because it's not a trans positive site. It's nothing like that. It was really bad the first time I did that. I've never done it again. It's got a list of opportunities and contacts. So what happens if students kind of see where they want to go, I make an individual connection with that partner and see if they're in a position to take somebody. And what I do is I work with them. I also have a number of partners who, like Brazil owes me about 28 people. I can send people to Brazil whenever I want because I've placed so many of those. Germany owes me, Sweden and I are in balance now. Thailand owes me, Taiwan owes me. So it's originally they started it as a one-to-one exchange, but we started to realize Taiwan may have somebody they want to send out, but we don't have anybody we really have that's able to go to Taiwan or has the capacity. We did have somebody who went to Taiwan, and one of the difficulties was he wanted to work in the kitchen, and because he wanted to be a chef. And one of the things, this was not from our region, but one of the things we talked about is, unfortunately, in a Chinese restaurant, the majority of the staff spoke Chinese. So trying to partner to Taiwan, it becomes, okay, how much time do you have to learn the basics of the language so you can start speaking at least a little when you get there? But I connect to partners and say, hey, what can you do? Right now, I've got a potential inbound coming from Thailand, and I already have a placement for them because we talked about it at NIAN. There's a lot of networking going on when you do it. It's a lot of communication. What am I doing wrong? It's not moving. You broke it. Okay, so there is an application form. It's a standardized form. There's a couple of minor changes that I've tried to make onto it, and I do it with whiteout because it doesn't quite work in the North American way, the way it did in the university. It does not ask for your CV and your transcripts. I typically say, and I'll say it to the inbounds that I'm getting it from, I need a CV or a resume, and I need copies of your transcripts, because your application form says what you want to do. But I had somebody who wanted to do airplane mechanics, and he'd had 1 year of basic engineering. If we had known that before he came in, we would have set up something different. The cover letter also talks a lot more about what they want to do, because the application form is fairly vague and it doesn't give a lot. It's based off the old youth exchange ones and doesn't think about the fact that they're adults. Once they're accepted, we apply for a visa and a tourist, and I send an acceptance letter from the NGSE coordinator, because that helps them get the visa, because it's saying you're being accepted for a cultural exchange, and it explains what it is, and that makes it much easier for them to get a visa as a tourist, because the number of people who in customs offices who know what Rotary and exchange are is phenomenal. We sent a young woman on exchange to Brazil. He recognized the guarantee form in the paperwork and said, but where is your school? He thought she was a youth exchange and ended up spending 20 minutes talking to this customs officer in Brazil about, no, this is a new program. I'm coming down here and I'm going to be working with a local NGO to learn about how you do this here, and got in. But so we do have a guarantee form. It doesn't need to be blue ink, and we can email it. That's the other nice thing about adults. The amount of paperwork is much smaller because they're grown-ups and they're over the age of 18. We do need the health information and the vaccinations for them as well, though. But because they're over 18, the other nice thing about it is all the police record checks and things that you have to go through as a host family are different for the NGSE. I do have to tell this story. The girl who went to Brazil on an NGSE, we had posted a picture on our Facebook of, we had an NGSE here he was a medical student from Brazil. And the NGSE, who had been a youth exchange student, who had gone to Chile said, "Why is so-and-so there?" And we were like, he's here on an NGSE. So she ended up coming up here from the US to spend part of Christmas vacation because somebody she had known on exchange in Chile was in Canada. So they spoke the shared language of Spanish because it was just easier because they'd both been in Chile. So it was very cool. The acceptance letter never uses these words. We don't say job, work, co-op, or volunteer. Co-op implies they're going to go to a school or it is school approved and we need to have a student visa. They're not getting a student visa because there's no school here connected to them. We don't say job or work because then they start saying, are they taking a job away from a Canadian? Have you filled out all these forms to bring in somebody to have a job? And we don't say volunteer because then they go, are they doing something that would be a job if you didn't have this person here? So the words we use are mentoring, learning about your vacation in a different country, participating in Rotary activities and cultural exchange. Yes, they are learning about their vocation. Yes, they will be doing work activities, but we don't talk about it as a job. We also always include something about them returning home because these are people between the ages of 21 and 30. We have to make it very clear to the government when we're getting their visa that they are not, this is not a foot in to get immigrating. Because they are 18, over 18, the rules for them are different. They have to follow the rules of the host family. So the host family says you need to be home by midnight because we're old and go to sleep then. They come in at midnight. The no drugs rule remains in place. So even though marijuana is legal in Ontario, they do not use marijuana while they're here. Drinking is to be consistent with the host family expectations. And one of the reasons we say that is if your host family says, no, you can't drink, you don't. But one of the young women we had here from Italy, Chiara, she was working at the newspaper. Ours is a weekly newspaper. It comes out on Wednesdays. So Tuesday night, all the newspaper staff, once the paper was sort of printed and ready to go, they all went out for a drink to celebrate. And Chiara's sponsoring club in Italy was like, oh no, but they're not allowed to drink. And I went, this is a big part of the experience of working for our small local newspaper. And by the end, they had her putting articles in the paper, they had her photographs in it. So what we said to her is, you don't get drunk, but of course you can go out and have a beer. They have now really modified the NGSE rules. And yes, they can go out and have a drink or two, but we're not expecting them to get drunk. They must have a valid international license and insurance if they're going to drive. But some of them come and they rent a vehicle because it enables them to get around, and they are allowed to do that. And they're also supposed to have fun and learn. The participant responsibility is they pay for medical insurance, liability insurance, the flights, and the visa. Some countries have a fee for administration. We don't. They have to attend Rotary meetings in the home country and host country as asked. They have to provide a summary report of their experience to the NGSE coordinator in both countries, hopefully. And they should have a presentation about their experience for their hosting club as well as their sponsoring club. And they should know about Rotary and its programs because they're expected to participate in them. And some of them have participated in a lot of Rotary projects. Some of the students who've gone to other countries, like outbound to Brazil and stuff, they have ended up being placed in like a full-time Rotary project. Like in Brazil, we had one, well, in Sweden, we had a student who was full-time in a project that the Rotary Club there was sponsoring for mentally ill street people. The club has to find a vocational placement that fits with the application. I'll be honest, the Stratford Club's been amazing because they have an NGSE coordinator and she took that one on. But typically what I do is I contact clubs and say, you know, do you have anybody in your club who's an engineer? Do you have anybody in your club who does this? Or I call places in the town and say, hey, I know Petrolia's got a bunch of petrochemical companies. So I start sending emails to HR of petrochemical companies. And then I get in touch with the club and say, hey, can you host this student? And I check with a couple of clubs. If you could find outbound candidates, that'd be fabulous. If you know anybody between 21 and 30 who would love to spend 3 to 6 months in another country, have them call me. Have them make the presentations. Hosting, food, friendship, guidance about the area. Like if there's a place you shouldn't go, please tell them. Applications are available online, or I have them, and I'd love to have committee members who would help give them out. So this is my first one. And the reason Penny was my first one is I was on YO Talks. And somebody said, I have a student here in England, and she would like to do a new, and that time it was called NGE, exchange in criminology and psychology. And I said, what is this? Colin explained it to me, and I said, well, let me find out if I'm allowed to do this, because I can place her with the local parole office because I have a contract there. Well, I did. Don Moore said, yes, of course you could do that, because he was our ADG at the time. And then at the end of the year, he said, would you like to be my ADG or would you like to run NGSE? It was a bait and switch. But she was our very first. This is Brianna, who Pat Cavan knows, who went to Malawi, and she was a midwife. This is the clinic she worked in. This is her with a nurse. She also did one in Colombia. What was really fascinating for her is she came back from having been a midwife in Malawi. Basically, they gave her a week or so to look at what she could do, and then said, okay, you can start delivering babies. If there's a problem, call the doctor. Whereas most of her fellow midwife students had spent most of their placement watching babies being born, and in the last week being allowed to deliver 1 or 2. So she delivered many, many more babies than most of her classmates. This is our young woman who went to Italy. What was cool for her was these were a whole bunch of people who were working with street kids in Italy in a program run by the woman on the side there is a nun. And most of the street kids they were working with were Roma children, because it's very hard for the Roma to get their children into schools because most of them do not have any paperwork. And unfortunately, as we all know, where there is poverty and prejudice and lack of education, there is no chance and there will be crime. So this nun has set up a program that our student participated in to help teach Roma children, basically. This was our young woman who went to Sweden. I think you can tell because of all the lovely blonde children around her. And she worked teaching English in a Swedish school. But the other thing she did was this was the Rotary Project. It was a program, oh, she also did some work on a pig farm, but it was a program for mentally ill people where they were teaching them how to work with bees for making honey, but also for making candles from the beeswax and making products so that they were earning some money. Marnell went to England where she worked in conservation and looking at ecosystem restoration. This is Mona, and Mona came to us. This is our canoe, and that's Ross. Mona wanted to do a Rotary Youth Exchange, but Mona is physically disabled. She can walk around inside a house because she can lean on walls, but she has mild spastic cerebral palsy, so she can't walk outside the home. So they couldn't get her onto a youth exchange because nobody was willing to take that on. And I was kind of like, she can go to the bathroom by herself. She can take showers by herself. This is so much easier than my little brother. So one of the things she says she has always wanted to do was go in a canoe. We got Mona out in Tobermory in a canoe. We also got her on the Blue Heron cruises, which she thought was fabulous. And this was just, we went up to Algonquin Park with Dante from Argentina, Sophie from England, Damaris from Mexico, and Aaron, who was preparing to go to England. And the one on the side in the red shoes, we had no idea he was a random Canadian. Just joined in. So this just lets you know some of the people that we've had come in and what they've done. So you can see Like Tamise worked at the women's shelter. We've had people work with festival marketing. We had a young man work at Camp Presqu'île as a counselor. We've had people work in restaurants. They've been all over. So if you want to be on the committee, because I would love to have other people, or you've got somebody who thinks would be a fabulous student to go on New Generations, you can contact me. And as I said, I look back, and at 17, I was not at a place in my life where I could have done this. And doing a year of university in another country, it's not the same as really getting to know the culture, really getting to be involved in there, and more importantly, getting involved with a Rotary Club where you get to help the community. And they're lovely young people. So that's it for me. Oh, so if anybody has any questions?
Thank you so much, Roseanne.
And I have to tell Dave, who went to the morgue, in 2019, I got a phone call from our outbound to Japan, and she said, I can't stay here. I don't know if I can do this. Her host parents ran a temple, and they invited her to come next door because they were going over and she'd meet the grandmother. Her Japanese was not the best because this was like late September, early October. So she went over and found out what she was doing was going to pay her respects to the dead grandmother who was seated in the living room. She stayed, she didn't come home. But when he said that about here, can you pick her up by the feet? Same kind of thing.
Thank you so very much, Roseanne. I think you've piqued an interest in a number of people about this new youth exchange program. And so hopefully you'll get some further queries. So thank you for sharing that. So Ross, we have 12 minutes.
Okay, so yeah, got a bit of a rest there, but now we're back. So I'm going to go back to sharing my screen.
Okay, while you're getting that done, Ross, I want to let you know that I have put a request out to all of the president-elects to respond to an email and informing us as to what level of interaction that they have with youth, so we can start populating the volunteer youth.
Okay,
program.
So this is sort of the not fun side of youth programming. It's the vulnerable person and youth protection policy. I believe that was emailed to everybody. Yes, the policy. Yes, getting a nod there. So okay, that's not working. That's not working. Let's try this. There we go.
I think I sent it, Ross. If not, it's available on the district website under document.
That's in one of my slides coming up. This is our Rotary. I can't see my notes when I'm like this, but anyway, Rotary statement on working with youth and vulnerable persons. I'm not going to read that to you. You can read it when the slides come out. Basically, it says that we have to look after youth and vulnerable people who we come in contact and ensure that they don't get abused or neglected in any way. That makes sense, right? So the policy. This looks like our district website, doesn't it? Yeah. So you kind of follow. You can see that there's drop down things, and you end up at the youth protection, and that gives you the full policy. Yeah, it's a good read, you know. Put you right to sleep. So why do we need to have a vulnerable person and youth protection policy? Well, that's easy. We need to safeguard vulnerable people that are involved in Rotary programs. We need to protect our club members from allegations. And we have to be in compliance for youth exchange. Absolutely. There's a compliance requirement from Rotary International. It's liability protection, it's due diligence. It's making sure we report things properly. There in the policy isn't just how not to abuse people, it's how to respond to allegations and what the process is. So that's actually the part that takes the most reading is the how, if there is an allegation of abuse from anybody, how to manage that. The big part on a big part of this is screening volunteers, and all the volunteers need to be screened at different levels, depending on how involved you are with youth or vulnerable people. If you're having a significant interaction, if you're the youth exchange officer, if you're a host parent, those things, that would be a significant interaction. You're involved with this person on a regular basis. If you're you're helping out, if you're at a RILA weekend and you're there the whole time, if you're the Interact liaison for your club, all those kind of things, those are, you're having significant interaction with vulnerable people or youth. So if there is that level of interaction, then we have an application that includes an interview, there's a criminal background check and reference checks. It's very similar to if you wanted to coach a kid's hockey team or be a Girl Guide or Boy Scout leader. It's the same, it's a similar kind of make sure we weed out any people that are known to be offenders of some sort. So significant interaction, it's based on how much time and the nature of the involvement you have with the person, the location. Are there other people, other individuals around, other screened adults, other children? There's a lot of variability in there. If you're involved in the actual youth exchange program, it's just a whole lot easier if you just go through the whole screening process. Don't worry about it, just get the job done. But you know, there could be things where if for example your club does youth exchange and you're just providing a ride to the exchange student to the meeting or something, that would not be considered significant interaction. That's occasional. So that would require a different level of checking. So as I mentioned, some of these people, like if you're the district youth protection officer or on the district committee, Interact committee, right, I'm not sure about Rotaract. Anybody in the district governor's stream is supposed to have the to do the screening. Club youth protection officer, youth exchange officer, youth exchange counselor, all of those folks, Interact and Rotaract. That's, I think, supposed to say RILA too. All those folks, that would be a significant interaction, and we want to go through that whole screening process just to make sure everything is hunky-dory. On the Ontario side, that background check is called the police vulnerable sector check, and we do that the first time, and then every year after that we do an offense declaration. On the Michigan side, it needs to be an SSN search, and it's only good for 1 year. And yeah, so you have to, it's all Department of State rules on that side, and that has to be done every year. We upload that information into a database. If you're involved in youth exchange, it goes into the YEAH database, or if you're not in youth exchange, then it's going to go into a new database that we are starting to use, which is the Youth Volunteer Management Database. So the Youth Exchange Administration Hub is the database where we keep track of all of the participants in Youth Exchange, the students, the volunteers, everybody, all their information is there. And it's just a data management system. And we keep the volunteers' criminal record checks and applications and all that good stuff there. And when on the American side, when the Department of State wants to review that, we have to provide that for them. And so the Youth Volunteer Management is our new database that we're bringing online for the district. And so that's for tracking volunteers who work with youth and vulnerable persons, but aren't part of Youth Exchange. So that would be RILA, Interact. If you want, you can just do your whole club. It's actually fairly easy. Once we're up and running, if you just run everybody through the database, it just makes it all clean and simple, and all the records are kept. And both those, the Youth Volunteer Management and database do a cross-reference kind of a thing. So our district governor stream and my committee are working to refine the vulnerable persons and youth protection policy all the time. And we're working on rolling out this youth management, volunteer management program. And part of that is what Sonia was saying, is that we've asked every club to identify how what level of interaction you have with youth, with your, that's supposed to say youth and vulnerable people. It's too bad I didn't get somebody to spell check this for me. So I think, yay, there we are. I made it. Woo-hoo! 3 minutes to go. I'm getting good at this stuff. So I'm gonna stop sharing my screen because I stole that picture anyway. Does anybody have any questions? Dave, say something.
With Interact, if it's a school-based club, we've just got a Interact club back up and running here, and all the leaders are teachers, and they've done offense declarations for the for the school, and all the students involved in the club are students at that school. Are they still going to need to do the youth volunteer management?
They're not Rotarians, are they?
No, they're teachers.
So
and they're running the club. That we have a Rotary liaison, but
yeah. So your Rotary liaison would be the person that would have to be vetted.
Okay.
Rotary. Actually, you're posing a very interesting question, because it's a Rotary program, and the volunteers running it aren't Rotarians.
They're teachers at a school-based club.
They're teachers at a school, so they're obviously vetted by the school board. Honestly, my thought would be, I would ask them if they would be willing to do once we've got the volunteer management system up and running, I would ask them if they'd be willing to do the volunteer application just as a sort of a cover the bases due diligence kind of a thing. I mean, I don't think we can force them to if they don't want to, but I don't. And yes, we can use the offense declaration instead of a brand new criminal record check. But it would certainly, I would feel more comfortable. I don't know about if the DGs want to chime in.
I would agree with that, Ross. Just because they've been vetted by a school district and they become a Boy Scout leader, they're gonna be vetted by the Boy Scouts. So I think the same thing needs to happen with Rotary, that they still should be put into the system. If they don't agree to the background check, then maybe we can get the school district to sign off on something. But I think that everyone involved with youth at a Rotary, in Rotary needs to be vetted.
Agree. I think it demonstrates due diligence. So Ross, there's a question in the chat that I'm going to respond to, and it's around the document that was our youth and protection policy, our child and youth protection policy that's on the district website. That was extensively reviewed last year, and we ensured that it was compliant with the Rotary International guidelines, and it's quite current. And I anticipate that we may make a change next year based on the use of the Youth Volunteer Management Program as needed. Ross, anything to add to that?
No, that sounded pretty. Yeah, I mean, we do try and. My understanding is that it never goes more than 3 years without being reviewed.
Yeah. Okay. So thank you very much, Ross and Roseanne, for your presentations.
You're welcome.
So next week, the president-elects, we will be completing our program, and we'll be hearing from Kirk Langford. And while Kirk is our last speaker, he will tell you that his content, public image, and public relations is something that we need to think about from start to finish in the work that we do as Rotarians. So in preparation for next week's session, I will be resending you the documents that you are charged with reviewing in preparation for the district annual general meeting. So that includes the district policies and procedures that have been drafted by our district governor nominee, Catherine, and vetted through our governance committee. And we'll also be reviewing the 2023-24 budget that's been drafted by the finance committee. So if you could please review those over the next few days, and any questions or queries that you have, please send them to us in advance so that we can put them together and prepare our responses to you at our next meeting. So we'll also be taking some time to get your thoughts about this year's program and next year's program. So Catherine will be doing presentation with you and wanting your thoughts about what we'll do next year. And we're also going to want your thoughts on a strategic planning document that we're working on for setting the district goals for next year for sure, and tentatively for the 2 years following that. So other than that, I'm looking forward to your responses about your youth protection requirements for your club so that we can start populating that database. And I hope that you all have a great week. Thank you, everybody.
Thanks, everyone. Have a good night.
Thank you. That was a great session.
Thank you.
Bye, everyone.
Bye-bye.
Right. So thanks for your help, Catherine and Mike, running the session again.